You know, when most people hear the name USS Indianapolis, their mind probably jumps to one place, that terrifying monologue from the movie Jaws. But the reality, well, the reality is a story that's so much deeper. It's a story of incredible heroism, yes, but also of catastrophic failure, and a 50-year fight for justice that would end up reshaping the Navy itself.
So let's set the scene. It's the final summer of World War II. The heavy cruiser Indianapolis gets handed the most secret, most urgent mission of the entire conflict. It has to transport the core components of Little Boy, the atomic bomb, all the way from San Francisco to the island of Tinian. I mean, the fate of the war was literally resting in its hold.
Okay, so after dropping off its world-changing cargo, the Indianapolis is ordered to sail from Guam to Leyte in the Philippines. Now, this should have been just a routine trip, but there was a massive problem, a critical vulnerability. The ship was sent completely unescorted, right into waters that were known to be prowled by Japanese submarines. What happened over the next 4 days? It almost defies imagination. See, this isn't just the story of a ship sinking. It's the story of why it sank, why nobody even knew it was gone, and why its captain was blamed for a failure that, as you'll see, went all the way to the very top. To really get what happened to the Indianapolis, you have to go all the way back to its beginning. The ship was actually a product of the Washington Naval Treaty of 1922, and that diplomatic agreement is key to understanding its fate. The ship's entire design was a major trade-off. See, to meet these strict weight limits from the treaty, designers had to choose between speed and armor. They chose speed and firepower. So what you got was this fast, powerful cruiser that had, well, a glass jaw. It had almost no armor below the waterline, making it fatally vulnerable to exactly the kind of attack it was about to face.
And the secrecy of this mission was absolute. Captain McVay himself wasn't even told what he was carrying. His crew guessed it was everything from gold bullion to some kind of new biological weapon. The ship just raced across the Pacific, setting a new speed record to Pearl Harbor. And on July 26th, it delivered the bomb. Its historic mission was over. Its tragic one was just about to begin.
So after Tinian, the ship heads to Guam, then gets orders for Leyte. The crew, they're feeling relaxed after that high-stakes delivery run. They have no idea they are sailing directly into a perfectly laid trap. And right here, this is the fatal mismatch. The Indianapolis had no sonar, no way to detect submarines. Captain McVay's request for a destroyer escort, a ship that did have sonar, was denied because the route was supposedly safe. It wasn't. Waiting there in the darkness was the Japanese submarine I-58, and its commander, Mochitsura Hashimoto, was actively hunting for American ships. Just after midnight on July 30th, Hashimoto fired 6 torpedoes. 2 of them hit their mark. The first one literally blew the bow clean off the ship. The second hit midship, right next to a fuel tank and an ammunition magazine. The explosion was catastrophic. It crippled the ship's power and all its communications instantly. 12 minutes. That's all it took. Just 12 minutes from that first impact to the moment the 610-foot cruiser vanished beneath the waves. About 300 men went down with the ship. Nearly 900 were thrown into the pitch-black, oil-slicked water. For the survivors, the sinking of their ship was, believe it or not, only the beginning of their ordeal. Now they faced a battle against dehydration, exposure, and, of course, the ocean's most notorious predators. Now, we've all heard the stories about the sharks, and that was a constant, visceral terror. But the real silent killer out there was something called hypernatremia. Desperate for water under a blistering sun, men would start drinking the seawater. The extreme salt content caused rapid dehydration, which led to a complete and total mental breakdown. This quote from a survivor, it just paints a horrifying picture. Men, completely lost to delirium, would start hallucinating that the ship was just right below the surface, offering fresh water from its fountains. They'd swim down, and they would never come back up. This saltwater madness claimed hundreds and hundreds of lives. The numbers, they're just staggering. Of the nearly 1,200 men on board, almost 600 of them died in the water over 4.5 days. Only 316 were pulled from the ocean alive. And that raises the most haunting question of all. Why wasn't anybody looking for them? The fact that so few men survived was the direct result of a total system collapse. It wasn't just that the Navy lost a ship. They lost track of it completely.
They had no idea where it was. The tragedy was just compounded by this cascade of errors. First, naval intelligence failed to warn McVay that another U.S. ship had been sunk on his route just days before, which led him to stop defensive zigzagging. Then, at least 3 separate radio stations received his SOS calls and just ignored them. And finally, when the ship never showed up in Leyte, the port director just assumed its orders had changed and never reported it overdue. And the reasons the SOS calls were ignored, it's almost unbelievable. One radio operator was allegedly drunk on duty. Another had given a strict do not disturb order. A third just dismissed the signal as a Japanese trick. Every single one of those decisions was a death sentence for the men in the water.
So when the survivors were finally, accidentally, discovered by a routine patrol plane, the Navy was facing a public relations nightmare of epic proportions. Their response wasn't to fix the system, it was to find a single person to blame. Captain Charles McVay III became the only captain in U.S. history to be court-martialed for losing his ship in an act of war. The charge was that he endangered his ship by not zigzagging in what they claimed were conditions of good visibility.
And here's a stunning twist. The Navy actually flew the Japanese submarine commander, Mochitsuru Hashimoto, all the way to Washington to testify against McVay. But Hashimoto's testimony completely backfired. He stated, under oath, that the visibility was poor and that zigzagging would not have saved the ship. He still would have hit it. And yet, the Navy convicted McVay anyway. For decades, Captain McVay had to live with that blame. He got hate mail from grieving families for years, and in 1968, he took his own life. The case just seemed closed, a tragic footnote in history. The fight for McVay's honor came from the most unexpected place you can imagine. In 1997, a 6th grader from Florida named Hunter Scott chose the USS Indianapolis for a history project. He started interviewing survivors, and in doing so, he uncovered this mountain of evidence that proved McVay's innocence. A 12-year-old kid. Hunter Scott's project ignited a national movement. Survivors, lawmakers, even the Japanese commander Hashimoto joined the cause. Finally, in 2000, Congress passed a resolution that officially, posthumously exonerated Captain McVay. And then, in 2017, the ship itself was finally found, bringing a kind of deep-sea closure to this long, tragic story. The story of the Indianapolis is, of course, a memorial to the 879 men who died. But it's also a powerful lesson, isn't it? It's a warning about what happens when systems fail, when accountability is replaced by blame, and how the fight for the truth, no matter how long it takes, is always a battle worth waging.